Sometimes I grow so tired, but I know it's not one thing I got to do. The time is now. Sing my song. I'm going around the world and I tell my tale.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another installment of the Rambling Men Sports Podcast. As always, I am your co-host, Shane Price, and with me is my co-host, James Connolly. Thanks for tuning in. It is the week of Super Bowl Sunday, not quite Super Bowl Sunday. James, big week for you and your Eagles, man.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm very nervous, but I am excited.
We'll get into this later, but how are you feeling about it?
Surprisingly, I know I've said this the past it's been 2 weeks, 2 playoff weeks, divisional round and championship round. I'm surprisingly confident, and I'm not usually confident, so we'll see. I don't know.
You're definitely not confident.
I don't know.
You text me. I remember you texting me earlier this year saying you were nervous about the Cardinals at home, and I was like,
what I'm
"You're
saying.
insane."
I'm telling you, and that's how I usually am. And I actually touch on that in a lot of my points, but like you said, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, well, a little bit different format this week. I don't know why we felt like it would be better to end our podcast this week with our Super Bowl 52 preview picks, whatever you want to call it, worked into our final thoughts. So that's going to be last. So for starters, to lead things off, big news this week in the NFL. Alex Smith traded to the Washington Redskins. Wow, is all I have to say. I mean, I was a little bit surprised. Not because this came out of left field. I think we both kind of knew something was going to happen between these teams this offseason. But it does make a ton of sense for both sides. I just didn't expect Alex Smith to be leaving Kansas City right now. I thought he was under contract, I think, until 2019. I thought they'd at least give him another year. And then once he was a free agent, they just say, well, we're not going to bring you back. We're going to go with Mahomes, and then just kind of have a smooth transition. But that was a little bit surprising. And then Washington making this move kind of I don't want to say nowhere, but I thought for sure they would bring back Kirk Cousins. He's been balling out the last 3 years. I thought they would finally give in and say, you're our starting quarterback. We're going to give you a long-term contract. And they traded, we assume, his replacement before the franchise tag period even began, which is between, I have it here somewhere, February 20th through March 6th. So, that was almost a month away. So, a little bit surprising. What about you, James?
I love the trade for Kansas City. I'd give them an A+ on the trade.
Yeah.
They get rid of a pretty middling quarterback. I think we both say that Alex Smith is above average, but below great. So he's somebody who you can win with, not win a Super Bowl with. And they were going to get rid of him anyway. So it was like you said, they had the succession plan with Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
The fact that they got a third-round pick and a pretty good cornerback in Kendall Fuller for somebody that they were going to get rid of anyway, that's just a win for you. Kansas City's one of the few teams in the league without a glaring hole. So, having an extra draft pick is just a luxury at this point. It's not even a need. And they got richer at a position they were already good at in cornerback. And honestly, I think they're going to have one of the, top duos of cornerbacks in the league next year, up there with, Boye and Ramsey. I wouldn't put them in that class quite, or even Chris Harris and Aqib Talib. I actually think Aqib Talib is going to leave Denver this offseason. I'm sure we'll get into that in another podcast. But the trade, in my opinion, I have a lot of Redskins fans. I live in Baltimore. I work in Columbia, Maryland. A lot of people around there are just Redskins fans. A lot of people from D.C. A lot of them thought it was the worst trade in the world. I don't think it was that bad.
No, it did. Let's pretend Kirk Cousins had left. Let's say they tried to re-sign him and he left. This would have been a great deal, in my opinion. But they didn't even try to bring him back, as far as I'm aware.
I don't think it was that bad.
No, it was a great deal if you exclude the fact they're just letting Kirk Cousins walk.
It depends on what they wanted to do with her. We don't know what happened back there. Are they offering Kirk max contract? Because if they're not, Kirk's going to say, I deserve it. I'm leaving.
The word I heard this week was that they hadn't been in touch since the season ended. Him and the Washington front office.
Yeah, I'm out if I'm Kirk. I'm not staying in DC if I'm Kirk. But like I said, I would feel disrespected if I was him, if I balled out 3 seasons in a row and didn't get a contract. I think that's fairly disrespectful. Cut me or sign me to a contract. Basically, they got a Kirk equivalent. I'll get to that in just a second. I honestly think Kirk Cousins and Alex Smith are very similar. I do think Kirk Cousins might be slightly better. But honestly, I'd say they're about a 50-50 split. Very, very similar numbers over the past 3 years. Identical completion percentage, identical passer rating, identical yards per attempt. Cousins does have, a couple thousand more yards, 20 more touchdowns, but he's also
got
thrown
a lot
the ball
more touchdowns
many more times. And Smith does have a lot less interceptions. So, fairly similar. From the QB perspective, the Skins just made a lateral move. I don't think it's that bad of a move. But
no, I
mean,
when I read that Kansas City only got a 3rd-round pick, I was a little bit shocked. But they added a player onto that, and Kendall Fuller's a pretty dang good player.
Absolutely.
Only 2 years into his, career, and he's only started 12 games, but he's a talented player. He had 4 interceptions last year, so I think he could be a bright spot in Kansas City's defense. And the one area I think that they did need was another corner to pair with Marcus Peters, and now they got it.
I agree. The rich get richer.
I think it's great. It was great for both sides.
It's a position they don't have to worry about as early in the draft, because I do think they were going to go cornerback pretty early.
Yeah. And then also with that 3rd-round pick, real quick, you were about to move on, but that 3rd-round pick helps because they don't have a 1st-round pick. So now they have a 2/3. I'm sorry, a 2nd and 2/3. So that helps get some of that value back missing from the 1st round.
I forgot that they traded away that pick for Mahomes. I completely forgot about that. Good for them. That actually brings us into the first poll question of the week. Who won the Alex Smith trade? I think this is pretty easy in my opinion. I think it was the Chiefs. But you never really know. You never really know until a couple years down the road who won a trade. Like it's always easy to say who won a trade on paper, but you don't know who that 3rd-round draft pick is going to be. Yep. That could be a superstar. He could be worthless. And who knows what you're going to get out of Kendall Fuller. Cornerback is one of the most streaky positions in the entire NFL. Like, you can have a really bad year and a really good year. Patrick Robinson's a great example. He was, not good at all last year, and he's our best cornerback this year. He's a really high-rated player this year for the Eagles. So
I'm with you. I think the Chiefs won it too. It's easy to say that, though, when I think you have a succession plan in place, with Patrick Mahomes. So it's easy to say that now. Like you said, we'll see what that 3rd-round pick becomes, how Kendall Fuller develops in Kansas City. But I think the fact that they were willing to trade away Alex Smith after just 1 year with Mahomes shows how much faith they have in him. And I look forward to seeing how he develops in Kansas City. Which leads us to our next topic. Now that Alex Smith is in Washington, what do you think this means for Kirk Cousins?
He's going to Denver.
I think it's pretty obvious he's out of Washington. They can't afford to keep both of them on.
I honestly wrote this before the story dropped that Denver's going to offer him pretty much a max contract. I thought he was going to go there anyway. Great combination of front office, good defense, and 2 really good wide receivers, 2 number 1 wide receivers, in my opinion.
And a decent running back with C.J. Anderson.
A decent running back. They have a decent stable of running backs. Cousins can get the best of both worlds in Jacksonville and Denver. But considering how Blake Bortles...
Jacksonville already said they're sticking with Bortles.
Exactly. Considering that, and Denver's going to pay him top dollar. Basically, his choices are, and I don't know which of these teams are interested, but these are just the teams that I'm thinking. Cleveland, Denver, Arizona, New York, and New York. Jets and Giants. So basically, out of those teams, I think the Giants and the Broncos make the most sense from a money and roster perspective, but I think Kirk has a lot of respect for DC. He won't go to New York. I don't think New York would want him anyway because they have that high draft pick. So I do see Kirk Cousins in a Broncos uniform, and I see them honestly winning 11 or 12 games.
I was just about to say that about the Giants. The Giants just strike me as the franchise that They have Eli. I mean, they're not. I don't think they're going to release Eli right now. I think they're going to draft a
They're going to
quarterback
draft a QB.
early, either if it's at number 2 or in the second round. They're going to draft a quarterback and just say, "This is our succession plan. We're going to give Eli until the end of his contract, and then we're likely going to move on." But anyway, I had 6 teams actually that I think could be in the running for Kirk Cousins this offseason, and I have their hypothetical cap spaces right now. So assuming the NFL salary cap is at $176 million next year, which is just a hypothetical right now. It's not official. The 6 teams that I have and their cap space that'll be in the running for Kirk Cousins are Cleveland, and they'll likely have $103 million. So they definitely have the money to pay Kirk Cousins. New York Jets, $72 million in cap space. Minnesota Vikings, $57 million in cap space. Buffalo Bills.
Think about the Vikings.
That worries me as a Green Bay fan. Just that roster with Kirk Cousins, I think, would be really, really good.
I don't think they'd flip it from the 3 QBs they have, get rid of all of them.
I don't either.
But I didn't even think of that. That's actually a good point.
They need one. That's why I just had them on there. But I don't think so either. I think they're going to stick with one of those 3 guys they had on their roster.
I think they're going to go Bridgewater, and it's going to be a big mistake.
Buffalo Bills, $29 million. Denver Broncos, $23 million. And Arizona Cardinals come in last at $12 million. So Arizona's really hurting right now. If that salary cap ends up being less than what they're hypothetically projecting right now, that's really going to affect Arizona. But you can always clear cap space. That's why I'm not too worried about like Buffalo and Denver, who are kind of on the border of affording a franchise quarterback off the free agent market. But Arizona doesn't have it right now. If they can get it someone off the books, that'll really help. But without a doubt, though, Kirk Cousins is going to get his money this offseason. And I think, honestly, if I had to guess, I think the Jets and Denver are the most likely to get him right now.
I was going to say, I could see Jets and Denver for sure.
Just because they have the money.
I think the only... Also, they're going to miss out on all the really good quarterbacks because I do think Rosen, Darnold, and Allen are all going to go before the Jets pick. And I also think the Cardinals are going to draft a quarterback. I think it might be Baker Mayfield. They're going to trade up and draft somebody. I would almost put money on that.
Who'd you say, Arizona?
Arizona.
Yeah, I think Arizona's going to trade up too.
When we do mock drafts later, I really see Baker Mayfield there. I think him and David Johnson and Larry Fitz would be a nice little.
I'm looking forward to seeing who Cousins chooses to sign with because we don't see this very often. A quarterback at his caliber, I consider him a top 12 quarterback in the league. I'm not sure I think you were something around that top 12 quarterback, somewhere in there. We don't see this type of caliber quarterback enter the free agency market. It happened one time with Peyton Manning back in 2012. And I took that for granted. I didn't know how big it was, but now I realize that this is a big deal. So I'm looking forward to seeing where he ends up. And so this brings us to a poll question. Where do you think Kirk Cousins will end up this offseason?
Denver.
You think Denver?
That's where I'd go.
I would say so too. It really sounds like John Elway is going to make a push for Denver. Cleveland definitely has the money, but they have really no assets to help them out, and it's Cleveland. The Jets are a little bit intriguing because they have the money to pay him. They have a good defense, a good coach, in my opinion, and Todd Bowles. So I'm interested. I'm interested to see where he goes, for sure. So another thing going on this weekend is the 2018 NFL Hall of Fame induction ceremony. It's not the ceremony; it's just revealing who the inductees, I should say, will be. And there are a total of, I believe, 18 finalists. 15 of those are modern-day players, including guys like Isaac Bruce, Brian Dawkins, Ray Lewis, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Brian Urlacher, just to name a few. And then 2 senior finalists, and that basically means guys who missed their chance kind of on the ballot, and the Veterans Committee, to use a baseball term, is giving them another chance to make the Hall of Fame again. And then a contributor finalist is the third one, and that's basically a guy in the front office. So, and the contributor finalist is a guy named Bobby Beathard, who was a former GM and player administrator for 5 different teams. And then the senior finalists is linebacker Robert I don't know how you pronounce his last name. Brazil, who knows? Former linebacker for the Houston Oilers way back in the day. Really sounds like a really good player looking at his stats. And then guard Jerry Kramer from my own Green Bay Packers. He played well before my time in the 1960s. But hey, former Green Bay player, I hope he gets in. So, James, I know that took a little bit too long, but who do you think gets in this year?
I got Isaac Bruce, Brian Dawkins, Ray Lewis, John Lynch, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, and Brian Urlacher.
You're going with that many modern-day players?
All modern-day players.
See, I'm not. Go through those again. You said some that weren't surprising, and I had a few of them. But
Isaac Bruce, Brian Dawkins, Ray Lewis, John Lynch, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Brian Urlacher. None of those are not Hall of Famers to me.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Shoe-in Hall of Famers too, and I'll tell you why. I got my reasoning right here. So Isaac Bruce, honestly, one of the most underrated receivers all time.
Yep.
Really big part of one of the best teams of all time, greatest show on turf. Brian Dawkins, I got a little bit of a thing here for him because, first of all, I'm pissed that Morton Anderson got in last year over him.
Yeah, Brian Dawkins is a stud, man.
That's bullshit. I'm sorry. But second of all, Brian Dawkins is one of the greatest safeties of all time, especially of his generation, gets almost no credit. And I'll tell you some stats that back that up in a second. That's not just the Eagles homer in me, but he's also my favorite defensive player of all time. I love Brian Dawkins. He's beast. But here's some of his accolades, and tell me this isn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. 2000s All-Decade team. If you're on an All-Decade team, you're a first ballot Hall of Famer, in my opinion. That means you were the best player at your position in a whole decade. 10th player to ever be in the 20-20 club, 20 interceptions, 20 sacks. He's also a member of the 30-30 club, which is 30 interceptions and 30 forced fumbles. 30 forced fumbles is a lot of forced fumbles. If you think that means he smacked, because he did smack. Only four people are in the 30-30 club. Ray Lewis, Rodney Harrison, and Charles Tillman.
I only had 28 forced fumbles for him, but either way, that's a great stat.
You'd be hard pressed to find a better safety in the 2000s not named Reeder Palomalo. He was if he wasn't second, he was third, because I know he wasn't better.
I would say that's definitely the top three safeties I've watched.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt. Ray Lewis doesn't need an explanation. Easily, probably the most deserving player on the entire list. John Lynch, another great safety. I'm pretty sure he's been on the ballot for a couple of years now. Definitely a Hall of Famer. Randy Moss is the top three football talent of all time. Easily a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's probably the best football player on this list, to be honest with you, out of all of them. T.O. deserves to be in statistics alone. I don't care.
I will say about those my rebuttal is about those wide receivers. We're going to get into that with mine, but I don't think all three of them are getting in this year. All three of those wide receivers, at least. But go on if you're done.
What'd you say?
Are you done? Or
What'd you say?
I said, are you done?
No, and then Brian Urlacher's top linebacker for a decade, so he's in.
The only thing, I disagree with you a little bit. Last night I actually studied how the voting process works, and not very often is a guy a first ballot Hall of Famer in the NFL.
I know.
I thought that happens a lot, but it actually happens more in MLB, and I thought that voting process was way more, biased toward the modern day players. But it's even worse in the NFL, and so I'll get into that here in a little bit. But
okay. I
have 8 guys getting in, and I actually do have the 2 senior finalists and the contributor getting in. First,
okay. I can only speak on what I know, so I just left that out. I'm not saying that they're not deserving at all. They could easily get in.
I looked up Bobby Beathard, the contributor finalist. He worked in the NFL for 38 years. He worked for 5 different franchises. When he worked for those franchises, he had 7 Super Bowl appearances with those franchises, and he's a 4-time Super Bowl champion. So obviously he's great. He did great work in the front office. The 2 senior finalists, I kind of wrote them off. I was like, I don't know who these guys are, but after looking at them, Robert Brazile, who knows, from Houston, 7-time Pro Bowler, 5-time first-team All-Pro, second-team All-Pro one time, credited with over 1,200 tackles in his career. I don't know how this dude missed the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And
Good
then,
point. First team All Pro 5 times.
Yeah.
You're in.
And then Jerry Kramer, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 5-time NFL champion, 3-time Pro Bowler, 5-time first team All Pro, and a second team All Pro. And
You're in.
he was ranked the number 1 player not in the NFL Hall of Fame according to NFL Network. I think all 3 of those guys are getting in this weekend.
Yeah, that's a good point. See, like you said, I didn't know anything about them. After you say that, you're right. They are in. Okay.
So then that leaves 5 modern era players I have getting in.
Let me try to guess them.
Okay.
If one of them isn't Brian Dawkins, I'm hitting the red button.
Brian
right now.
Dawkins is number 2 on my list.
Okay, cool. Ray Lewis.
Yeah.
Randy Moss.
Nope.
What? You don't have Randy Moss?
I do have Ty Law.
Steve Hutchinson?
Nope.
Urlacher?
Nope.
Who?
So you guessed Ray Lewis, Brian Dawkins, and Ty Law. The 2 that you didn't guess, one is Tony Boselli, the offensive tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I didn't mention his name, but he's on the ballot. He only played 8 years. People don't realize that. He played 8 NFL seasons. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler, 3-time first-team All-Pro, and started 90 games. I mean, he played less than a decade. I mean, in my opinion, that's good enough to get in. So, but maybe the fact that he didn't play that long really hurts him. But lastly, I have Isaac Bruce. And the reason
he
why
deserve to be in.
He does. But the reason why I have Isaac Bruce over Terrell Owens and Randy Moss is the Hall of Fame voters, the NFL Pro Football Hall of Fame voters, I should say, are very, I don't know what the word is, nitpicky about wide receivers. I have no idea why. That's just the way it is. In the history of the Pro Football Hall of Fame, there's only 25 wide receivers to make the Hall of Fame. Only 5 of those were first ballot inductees.
But Randy Moss is a first ballot.
One of those was the greatest of all time, Jerry Rice, and he was the last one to do it in it wasn't 95. It was earlier than that, I'm pretty sure. I think he got inducted in 2010. That's what it was. But he was the last first ballot Hall of Famer wide receiver, I should say, to get in. Here are some names of wide receivers, some of the best I've seen in my lifetime. Tim Brown, Chris Carter, Marvin Harrison, Michael Irvin, and Andre Reed. Each of those 5 combined for almost 5,000 receptions, just 2 shy, 4,998, 68,500 receiving yards, and over 500 touchdowns. And each one had to wait an average of 5 years to get in.
None of them were better than Randy Moss.
Randy Moss should be a first ballot. I just think it's going to be hard for.
I agree with your reasoning.
Yeah.
I agree with your reasoning.
I think it's going to be hard for him to get in. If those guys weren't first ballot, I think it's going to be hard for Randy Moss to get in. It's really going to be tougher for T.O. to get in, which is why I give the edge to Isaac Bruce. Super Bowl champion, 4-time Pro Bowler, second-team All-Pro, receiving yards leader in 1996, over 1,000 career receptions, over 15,000 receiving yards, averaging 14.9 yards per catch, and 91 touchdowns. And I think he's been on the ballot longer. I think the voters are going to give him the nod, I should say. And then guys like John Lynch, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Brian Urlacher, guys who we grew up with, we think are Hall of Famers. I looked at the list and I was like, there were like 10 guys who should be in this year. That's just not the way it's going to work out, I think.
Yeah, that's how the voting goes. You are right. You're right because we've actually seen those players play. Like I remember growing up, Brian Urlacher was like,
yeah, I know.
So sick.
I had to watch him against my Packers twice a year. My Tony Boselli pick might have been a little over the top, but the rest I feel really good in saying are going to make the Hall of Fame.
Okay. Which brings us into poll question. Which player in their first year on the NFL Hall of Fame ballot is most likely to get in? I think it's very easily Ray Lewis.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's Ray Lewis. I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, nothing to even talk about.
Yeah.
That brings us into something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while now. I'm glad that the season's almost over so we can. The NFL awards and predictions. I know this isn't what I think's going to happen. This is what I think it should be, just so everyone knows. Like, I'm well aware that some of these probably won't be what they are, but
mine's probably a combination of both. Who I think deserves it, and who I think will get it. So I'm looking forward to. You want me to go first, or you go first?
yeah, go ahead.
All right. So we might even have a unanimous all across the board here. But MVP, I mean, I have to go with Tom Brady. I don't know about you. He had a 66.3 completion percentage, over 4,500 yards, 7.9 yards per attempt, 32 touchdowns, 8 picks, 4.1 touchdown to interception ratio, and 102.8 passer rating. I mean, quarterbacks get MVP in this league, and he was the best one this year. That played a full year. Had Carson Wentz played a full year, I think it would have been him.
Okay.
And then, you want me to keep going? Okay.
No, we can do it like that.
Okay.
I said Tom Brady too. I love Tom Brady. Completely screw him. I hope we tear his ACL this week. I know that's terrible, but I mean it. But I could honestly sit here for 10 minutes, and I bet you I could convince you that Carson Wentz was the MVP, but I won't do it. Tom Brady.
You got to play a full
MVP.
season, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going off of value to the team.
No, absolutely.
Because he also put us in a position to get to the Super Bowl. Because if we don't go 11-2 in the games that we play with him, we're not number one seed and we don't make the Super Bowl. But
Probably
that's
not.
fine. Offensive Player of the Year, I have Todd Gurley. What about you?
I have the exact same thing. Todd Gurley. I think this is pretty obvious. I mean, he rushed for over 1,300 yards, 13 touchdowns, 4.7 yards per rushing attempt. And then on top of that, he had almost 800 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, and averaged 12.3 yards per catch. So, I mean, that dude had a monster year. So then, Defensive Player of the Year. I don't know who you have.
Okay.
But
so who's
what's that? You're losing connection.
I think an argument could be made for Antonio Brown, but definitely Todd Gurley. My Defensive Player of the Year was Calais Campbell. Honestly, this was hard. There wasn't a runaway, to be honest. So there wasn't even a clear-cut winner, but I do think Calais Campbell was the best player on probably the best defense, so I'm going to give it to them. Who's yours?
I have the exact same thing, Calais Campbell. 67 total tackles, 14.5 sacks, 3 pass deflections, 3 forced fumbles. He had a great year. And like you said, there wasn't really a breakout candidate. Khalil Mack had a down year. J.J. Watt was hurt. Those are 2 of the big ones right there. So I think you got to give it to Calais Campbell.
Absolutely. This is kind of boring because I think Offensive Rookie of the Year was a no-brainer. Even though a better argument can be made for Kareem Hunt than is being made, it's obviously Alvin Kamara.
Yep.
You agree, right?
Yep.
Okay, so Defensive Rookie of the Year, I think we're going to have different ones. I think yours is going to be Marshawn Lattimore, isn't it?
It is Marshawn Lattimore. 52 total tackles, 18 pass deflections, 5 interceptions, 1 forced fumble. He really helped that New Orleans defense be, I don't know how to say this, but like night and day from a year ago. Just from the worst to one of the best. He was a big part of that.
Absolutely. And it could easily be him. I went with Tre'Davious White. I think he was
pretty good too.
I think he had an equally good year, honestly. And I look at their stats. I think Tre'Davious White graded out like a point higher according to Pro Football Focus. I just went with Tre'Davious White to switch it up there.
Who had more interceptions between the 2 of them? Do you know?
I think they both had 4, which is good.
Lattimore had 5.
I think White had 4, but I think White had more pass breakups. Or something
it's going
like
to be one of those 2. I think there's I know who it was. It was Myles Garrett was the other one. But
didn't play enough.
Yeah, he didn't play enough. He was hurt. He did have 7 sacks, though. So then
who's your Coach of the Year?
Comeback Player or Coach of the Year, I have I think we both have the same thing. Actually, we might not. I think you got a trick up your sleeve. I'm going with Sean McVay.
It's not Sean McVay. And you know what?
I knew you had a trick up your sleeve.
Sean McVay was the pick until the playoffs. And if you're basing it off the regular season, give it to McVay. But if you're saying the 2017 and 18 NFL season, who was the Coach of the Year, it's either, and it's not because they're in the Super Bowl, it's either Bill Belichick or Doug Peterson. And I'm going Doug Peterson.
You'd bring up Doug
You
Peterson.
can try to say oh, the Rams went from 4 to 11 wins, but people forget that the Eagles went from 7 to should have been 14 wins. We lost to the Cowboys 6-0. We sat every starter week 17. Could have easily did the same thing. Both had second-year QBs. Both were calling the plays. One team was better than the other one, and I don't think the rosters were that desperate, like disparate. You know what I mean? I'm giving that to Doug Peterson because of what he did in the playoffs, though. I get that Sean McVay made a bad quarterback good and all that. Like, I get that, but Doug Peterson coached his ass off 2 weeks in a row, and that's why we're in the spot we're in, and we're going to need, as good as he called a game, as good as he called last week against the Patriots to even have a shot. But mine's Dougie P, no doubt.
You might have swayed me to.
Dude,
I'm not changing it, but you did a good job of swaying me.
People's argument would be he took a 4-win team and took them to 11 wins, which is freaking astronomical, obviously. But Doug Peterson could have took a team that was below 500 to an elite team, 14-2 if they had to. They had to win that last game, even with Nick Foles. They were going to win it because the Cowboys were out. Who's your comeback player?
Hold on. My deciding factor, though, for McVay was that Peterson took a team that was 7-9 to 13-3. Excellent job. I'm not disputing it. And to the Super Bowl, but we both know that. But no one's disputing that. But I'm going to go with McVay because they go from 4-12 to 11-5 when the NFC West, when no one gave them a shot. And he did wonders with Jared Goff and that Rams offense. I'm going with McVay.
It's not like Carson Wentz huge jump or anything either. It's not like Carson Wentz went from 16 TDs and 14 interceptions to the league MVP. But it's fine. I think they did this equally as good job.
Yeah.
I do give McVay more credit for the quarterback job because I don't think Goff's as good as Wentz.
No, I don't either.
And I don't think they have as good of a coaching staff as a whole. The Eagles have a really good coaching staff right now. I'm upset they're going to really get picked apart this offseason and next. But
this postseason run might really help Doug Peterson. Who knows?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But so you asked me
who's
about,
your comeback player of the year?
I was going to say, you asked me about comeback player of the year. We might have different ones, but I have Keenan Allen.
Same.
Oh, really? Yeah, he had over 100 receptions, almost 14.
Keenan Allen is like a top 5 receiver in the NFL.
I don't know about that.
He's a beast, dude. He's a beast.
He is a beast. But yeah, over 100 receptions, almost 1,400 yards, and 6 touchdowns. He was a great receiver in LA. I just wish he'd stay healthy, and people would really see how good he is.
So brings us to another poll question: who should win the NFL MVP?
We were both in agreement that it's Tom Brady.
Yeah, wins. But we're gonna recap poll questions here. I'm surprised at a couple of these, honestly.
Yes,
looking at the numbers,
a few of them were.
Who's been the most valuable component for Philadelphia during the postseason run? 75% of people said the defense, which I can't argue with. But Doug Peterson getting the same amount of credit as Nick Foles is pretty funny to me. Number 2, are you going to watch the Pro Bowl? The fact that 38% of people said yes to that is actually funny to me. I figured nobody really watched the Pro Bowl. This was the most surprising one to me, hands down. Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. 70% of people said yes. That really surprised me. I think it would be the other way around.
I think that just shows what our generation thinks of doping.
Yeah. But which player is most likely to make it in the Hall of Fame on their first year on the ballot in 2019? Almost everyone, 90%, said Mariano Rivera.
I'm curious to who the 10% were that said other.
I'm curious as to who they're talking about. It's got to be a homer for a team.
It's got to be like I looked at the list, and we put down Roy Halladay and Todd Helton. I looked at the rest of the list. It was like Andy Pettit, Roy Oswalt. I was like, if you're a Phillies fan, why wouldn't you just vote for Roy Halladay instead of Roy Oswalt? Assuming you're a Phillies fan. But if you're maybe it was an Astros fan that voted for Pettit when he was there, or a Yankees fan that wanted Pettit in, who knows? Well, then why wouldn't you vote for Rivera? I don't know who the 10% is. But yeah.
And the last one surprised me. The last one didn't really surprise me, I should say. Milwaukee made the right decision did Milwaukee make the right decision by firing Jason Kidd? 67% of people said yes, 33% of people said no.
That was surprising to me.
And now we are to our Super Bowl talk. And I want you to go first because I'm going to talk your freaking ear off.
All right.
Because it's my team.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say you should probably go first.
I know.
I'm sorry, you should go second, I mean.
I know the Eagles inside and out, so I can, talk in depth about their team more than any other team. So that's why I talk about the Eagles.
So when I look at this game, I right off the bat, I give two really important keys for both teams to win. And they're both basically the same thing. Key for New England, I think they have to get pressure on Nick Foles. I have it here somewhere. Part of the reason why Foles has been so great during this postseason run, and I have his numbers. I think I actually have it on my blog, but he was like 78% completion percentage, almost 600 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers, and a passer rating over 120. And part of the reason why he's been so great is because he hasn't faced a ton of pressure. He's been sacked just twice in 2 games. I don't think he's been hit a ton either. And I think if New England
not in this game either, because they have a worse D line than Atlanta and especially the Vikings. And not only do they not have a good D line talent wise, but they don't have depth either. But I'll get into that.
That's why that's my key for New England is they have to find a way. That's their weak spot. They have to find a way to get after Nick Foles. If they can find a way to do that, I'm not sure they can, but if they can find a way to do it. I really think since it's Foles' first Super Bowl appearance, maybe he gets rattled, maybe he panics, he makes one too many bad decisions that leads to a turnover and changes the game for New England. They have to get after Foles because everything else, I think they have the advantage. They have the coaching advantage. They have the quarterback advantage. They have, I would say, just about every other. I can't think of one off the top of my head here, but they have just about every other advantage. I think their weak spot though is getting after the quarterback. And that is what they have to do. If they do that, I'm just not sure Philly has a chance.
You know what I always say? One sec, I'm sorry to interrupt you just to chime in. You know what I always say to people who say New England has the quarterback advantage? That's the most obvious thing of all time. Yeah. That doesn't need to be said. But the good news is they don't have to play each other. They have to play each other's defenses, and that is very, very different.
And so I'm moving on to like I said, though, New England is in my opinion, they're the better team. That's not to say they can just show up and win. This is going to be a tough game for them. But assuming everything else goes right, which I think it will, Brady's going to make his throws. The defense is going to make its plays. Belichick's going to make great halftime adjustments. I'm expecting all of that to happen. But they have to get after Foles. I'm beating a dead horse here at this point, but they have to get after Foles, get him to make some decisions, and force some turnovers. So I'm moving on to my second point. The key for Philadelphia, it's the exact same thing except opposite. Get pressure on Tom Brady. I think this is an obvious one. Apart from the fact Brady's a 5-time champion, 2-time MVP. 2-time league MVP, 4-time I believe Super Bowl MVP, and arguably the greatest quarterback of all time. The way to beat New England is 2 things. Number 1, you have to have an advantage in the trenches, and the Eagles have that on both sides of the ball. Number 2, you have to have the ability to bring a pass rush from the interior. The reason why that is so crucial, I'm sure we've said this before, that is so crucial because Brady likes to stay in the pocket when he makes his throws. If you bring pressure from the edge, he's going to step up all day and just sling it downfield. No one's going to be able to stop him. But you bring pressure from the interior, which Philly can do with Timmy Jernigan and Fletcher Cox. Both guys combined for 8 sacks this year. They can bring it in the middle if they wanted to. If they get him in the interior, he's not athletic enough to escape the pocket. He just can't do it. So they have to do that. If they can't do it, it's over. Brady's going to pick that defense apart because I'm not sure the Eagles' defense is good enough to stop that short, quick passing game for 4 quarters, 3.5 hours long, however long it is. So they really got to get it done in the trenches. And the good news is that Philly has the advantage in the trenches, which is, like I said, New England's weak spot. So now I'm going to get into my pick here. When I look at Philadelphia, I see a lot of similarities to Jacksonville, the team that just gave New England all sorts of fits in Foxborough. They have a quarterback that doesn't get enough credit and has actually been overperforming. They have a sufficient run game with Jay Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount that has the ability to keep Brady off the field, and a very good defense that is exceptional up front. And the two biggest differences I've seen between Philly and Jacksonville is that Philly, and they're both good things for Philly. They have better weapons along the perimeter, and they have a quarterback that can consistently, in my opinion, get them the ball. We've seen it this postseason. This isn't a complete, clone of Jacksonville. They have better weapons on the perimeter than Jacksonville. Nick Foles can get them the ball when he wants to. They don't have as good of a run game, but it's not a huge drop-off. Their defense isn't as good, but it's not a huge drop-off. But in my opinion, they're deeper in the on defense. I can't get my thoughts out. They're deeper on defense, which is going to be crucial. If they can rotate bodies, let's pretend that they can get after Brady from a pass rush standpoint. They can rotate, like we've mentioned. They're so deep on the defensive line. If they rotate bodies and New England can't, protect Brady, creep him up right, I'm not sure they're ever going to be able to, because Philly's going to be fresh. They're going to get bodies in, and it's going to be a completely different game in the second half than Jacksonville, because Jacksonville was gassed at the end of the game. However,
so what's your pick?
However,
I knew that was coming.
When it comes to these big games and Super Bowls, it's all about having the better head coach and the better quarterback. And New England, I'm sorry, James, but New England has it on both of those accounts. They have a better head coach and they have a better quarterback. I think it's just incredibly difficult to beat Bill Belichick when he's had 2 weeks to prepare for an opponent. That's why it's only happened twice in 7 appearances in a Super Bowl so far. There's an 8th Sunday. We'll see how that goes. I think New England is going to find some way to get pressure on Foles. I think he's going to make maybe one bad decision that's going to cost him the game. I expect a very close game, though. I think Philly's going to keep this very close. I won't be shocked at all if they win, but I do think the Patriots will emerge victorious. Patriots 27, Eagles 24. I do think they will cover the spread. James, I look forward to hearing what you have.
Oh, you're going to love this. I analyzed the shit out of this game, bro. You don't even... Honestly, having a very, very difficult time trying to figure out who's going to win the game.
Yeah, I was 50-50
we disagree
on it.
in one area. If you take away the Patriots' mystique, I don't see how you could pick the Patriots in this game. The better roster is the Eagles roster.
You are 100% right about that.
Especially in the trenches, like you said, where it matters most. We all know that, Tom Brady, Bill Belichick counterbalance having the weaker roster with superior game planning and quarterback play and all that. That's all obvious. So
and that's the other, real quick, that's the other thing. Philly has a better coaching staff than Jacksonville, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So they can make their adjustments all they want, but who knows if they're going to work. So that's all I'm going to say.
That's a good point, too. I didn't even think of that. That's a good point. But usually how I pick games, I look at it from an analytical standpoint. I go through matchups. Football is all about matchups and which ones you can exploit. The Patriots are experts at it. And at the end, I'll make my pick based on the matchups. And I can tell you, and Shane, I'm telling you right now, I'll just give it away because everyone knows I'm going to pick the Eagles here. But I'm going to – Shane.
I knew that. Dude, I really wanted to take the Eagles. I so wanted to take the Eagles.
By the end of this, I got you convinced the Eagles are going to win this game.
All right, go on.
Listen to this. All right. Start with the Patriots on offense versus the Eagles defense. First, we'll go running backs versus the Eagles defense. Patriots are not going to be able to run the ball in this front, nor will they really try to.
Brady's going to throw the ball at least 50 times.
No one's been able to run the ball all year, and the Patriots just simply don't have the personnel to run it effectively between the tackles, especially against this defense. However, the Patriots have a huge advantage on this level because the Patriots running backs are much more dangerous for the receiving prowess out of the backfield, and with Jordan Hicks out, covering those linebackers are going to be tough. We have some pretty slow linebackers. I hope Schwartz is really game planning for that because that's going to be really huge. I'll give the advantage to the Patriots there in a sense, but it's almost kind of a push because they aren't going to be able to run. I think we both agree there.
Yeah.
All right, Patriots receivers versus the Eagles secondary. I think people at first would say that's advantage Patriots, but I'm going to tell you why. I think they might have maybe a slightly superior talent as far as that matchup, but the matchup is so perfect. I'm going to explain to you why. So the Eagles secondary is about average, but the Patriots receiving core minus Gronkowski is pretty average too, if you think about it. So if the Eagles can be effective against Gronk, which is almost impossible, the Eagles can win this matchup. Jalen Mills matches up perfectly with Hogan, taller, more physical receiver and cornerback. Ronald Darby matches up perfectly with Cooks, shorter, really quick, really fast. And Patrick Robinson has absolutely shut down slot receivers all year. I have full confidence he's going to shut down Danny Amendola in this game. Maybe not shut him down, but he's not going to have a game like he did in Jacksonville.
The problem is who's going to cover Cooks and Gronkowski. I'm sorry. I should say I meant Amendola. Amendola and Gronkowski.
Patrick Robinson's going to cover Danny Amendola.
Well, then who's going to cover Brandon Cooks?
Ronald Darby.
Yeah, he's pretty good. All right, go on.
So, and I get it. Gronkowski's the big mismatch, but if they can keep Gronkowski under 100 yards and under 2 touchdowns, I think that's a win for the day.
Yeah.
And I think Malcolm Jenkins can do that. And with the pass rush, I think the Patriots, the Eagles have the advantage in that matchup there. Patriots offensive line versus Eagles defensive line. This is a huge mismatch in a very, very crucial spot.
Yes.
What's Tom Brady's kryptonite? We already talked about it. Pressure, not pressure, but pressure from up the middle. Pressure from the edges is something Tom Brady almost wants, because then he's allowed to step up into the pocket.
He wants to stay in the pocket.
Tackles. Exactly. But what I believe the Patriots are going to try to do, they're going to try to do what the Giants did to us late in the year when Eli Manning had a good game. First of all, that game was overstated, terrible showing by the defense, but they also just came off of a 2-week road trip on the West Coast, and they had a third road game in the row, and they still won the game. Eli Manning had a great game and everything, but this team will be a lot fresher than that one, to say the least. But what I believe the Patriots are going to try to do is sort of like a death by 1,000 cuts approach. They'll have those 15-play drives, picking up 4 or 5 yards at a time. That's going to neutralize the Eagles' pass rush. That's how you got to play them. Eagles typically give a lot of cushion, and that's why Eli Manning, really came back in that game. Jim Schwartz has to be aggressive. He has to jam those receivers. He has to give them an extra second, and they're there. And if you give Gronk a free release, it's pitch and catch all day. You can't do it. Jam them at the line all day. If you let the Patriots receivers and Tom Brady dictate where they want to be on the field, he's going to hit them every time. You got to push them off their spot. So the Eagles have played well against the mobile quarterbacks all year. Granted, they haven't played a Tom Brady, but typically when a guy can stay in the pocket, that pass rush, considering it comes from all 4 positions, not just the edge, is pretty lethal against guys.
They're gonna not. We should point out they should, I should say, bring pressure on the interior. Not just that, they need to really make sure they contain the pocket, not just because he's not mobile. They really got to make an emphasis on collapsing the pocket. If they collapse the pocket, it's over.
Could not agree more. But from a defensive perspective, I think the Eagles defense matches up well with the Patriots offense minus Gronkowski, even against Tom Brady, just because he's so immobile. I mean, he's probably one of the least immobile guys in the league at this point. He is an old man. He'll fall down before he takes a hit, which I respect him for. That's why he's still playing. The thing about the Patriots is they're going to pass. It might be to their running backs, might be to their wide receivers, might be to their tight end, but they're going to pass the ball. So that's a little easier to game plan for from that perspective. But if you can get genuine pressure with that front 4 and let 7 people cover, you should be able to keep the Patriots from scoring 30 points. And honestly, I think if you can keep the Patriots under 30 points, you got a good shot at winning this game. I really do believe that. Now to the Eagles offense versus the Patriots defenses, mismatches all over the place. And let me tell you, I don't want to sound typical, but they're so lucky Carson Wentz isn't playing. Because I'm telling you right now, I would go put my bank account on the Eagles right now.
I would too, actually.
They would have one advantage, and it would be coaching, which is a huge one. But
it's not like Philly has a terrible coaching staff. I mean,
exactly, and it's not to say that Wentz is better than Brady, but this year they were at least comparable.
Yeah.
But so all right. This is where Bill Belichick will need to coach his ass off. the Eagles' offense without Carson Wentz isn't elite at anything. They're not elite at one single thing, but they're pretty damn good at everything. Absolutely everything. Bill Belichick's favorite approach is to take away your best weapon. The rest of the team beat you. Eagles' best 3 receivers over 700 yards. Aguilar and Jeffrey all over 700 yards. Only team in the league to do that. They also have 3 running backs who they interchange almost evenly that do 3 different things. So from that perspective, I don't think the Eagles really have any elite skill position players since Carson Wentz is injured. It's outside maybe Zach Ertz, so you can maybe put him in there. But
I think that's the biggest mismatch of the of that. I think that's the biggest mismatch of that matchup between the Eagles offense and the Patriots defense is Zach Ertz. He's got to have a Gronkowski like game.
Absolutely, but like I said, the Eagles don't have without Carson Wentz any elite players on offense outside of the offensive line, but they have some pretty damn good players. Ajayi's pretty good. Yep. Jeffrey's pretty good. Ertz is pretty good. Those are pretty good players.
Even Aguilar had a good year.
Aguilar is confident right now, dude, and he's just a player they need to get the ball more in space. I mean, he's special, but Eagles receivers versus the Patriots secondary, this was a push for me. Like I said, though I do think the Patriots probably have superior talent here by a little bit, the lack of like a true number 1 receiver really hurts the defense. They can't really key in on anyone. Gilmore's going to line up with Jeffrey, which is a push in my opinion. Butler's going to line up with Smith. Butler will shut Smith down, but we played well without Smith all year. But who's going to guard Aguilar? Because their third receiver or their third cornerback is Eric Rowe. And I'm going to tell you right now, Aguilar will eat Eric Rowe's lunch, bro.
I know you're not an Eric Rowe fan.
He is not covering Nelson Aguilar, dude. He'll be wide open all game. So watch that on those short slants and curls. He'll be wide open every time. Also, like I said, who's on Zach Ertz? Big mismatch, like you said. McCourty, I think.
I was just about to say McCourty could do it.
I think he can neutralize Zach Ertz, but none of the linebackers can.
No.
So if you want to put McCourty on Zach Ertz all game, go ahead.
Not without Dante Hightower.
Aguilar's going down the sideline.
Another thing I'll say is I think Philly's offense is really going to have to make an emphasis to run the ball. If they can,
I'm about to get into that.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'll let you do it.
And this is where my true analysis comes in. But I think the Eagles receivers versus Patriots secondary will be a push. I think both sides will make plays,
yep.
Pretty equally. Patriots defense versus the Eagles running backs. This one I went pretty long on this one. Huge mismatch, and this is the key to the game. Even more so than the pass rush, in my opinion, because like I said, they know that that's the Eagles' strength, and they're going to game plan to neutralize that pass rush. No matter how good it is, I see that happening. If the Eagles can get out to a lead, that will be huge, and I'll get into that in a second. Because if they have to start pushing the ball down the field, Tom Brady might get hurt. He's going to get hit so much. I'm going to tell you right now. But
the difference, just real quick. I hate to keep interrupting you, but the difference between this Philly team and last year's Atlanta team that got out to the big lead is that Atlanta's pass rush isn't nearly as good as Philadelphia's is this year.
Deep.
So if Tom Brady does have to, they're down early, let's pretend they get out to a 13, 17 nothing lead, and Brady really has to start slinging it. I just think it's going to be tough for them to make a run.
Absolutely. I can tell you one thing: if it's 28-3, they're not beating the Eagles.
Yeah, because Peterson will go for the jugular, in my opinion, he's not going to be Shanahan where he's just going to go for the jugular every play. He's going to be like, okay, let's try to burn some clock here.
Dude, the Patriots couldn't do that to the Cleveland Browns again if they tried. That was the luckiest. Like, I don't want to say it was lucky. They went and got the game, but I mean,
everything that could have gone right for New England went right that game.
Exactly. But here we go. Huge mismatch. The Eagles got to take advantage of this mismatch in order to, control the clock, keep Tom Brady off the field. The Patriots are missing their best linebacker, Hightower.
Mm-hmm.
Their D-line is below average. Actually, their entire front seven is below average.
Absolutely.
And the Eagles have a top 3 O-line, if not the best O-line in football. They're very big, very fast, especially the right side of the line. Yep. Kelsey, Brooks, and Lane Johnson is the best right side in football. I don't care what anybody says. Run behind them, and you're going to get 3 or 4 yards every time. Establishing the run is going to be huge, not only to control the clock, but also to establish the RPOs. RPOs are the key in this game, Shane. That's why the Eagles dominated the Vikings in that game, because they ran RPOs to perfection. There's two reasons. Well, there's two things I sort of want to get into on the RPOs. First of all, Nick Foles is great at RPOs. So is Carson Wentz. They're both good at them. That's huge. Philly needs to play to their strengths. Don't make Foles do things that he's not good at, especially in the Super Bowl. But number two, the RPO is almost undefendable if you're the Patriots, if it's ran effectively, because the Patriots just don't have the personnel to stop it. For people that don't know, the RPO is a run-pass option. Basically, quarterback snaps the ball while he's riding the running back. He reads a player on the defense, usually the linebacker, chooses a play in real time, which would be more effective, either to hand off the ball or pull the ball out and throw it to a receiver. So, for an example, an RPO that the Eagles love to run, they have Foles and Ajayi in shotgun. Ajayi will cross Nick Foles' face, like across to the left. He'll ride him. He'll read the outside linebacker to the right. If the linebacker crashes to stop the run, he hits Alshon Jeffrey on the slant, wide open. If he doesn't crash and he stays back, he hands it off to Jay Ajayi, and he gets 5 or 6 yards. So, like I said, if it's ran effectively, you can't really stop it. So, especially with the personnel the Eagles have. I mean, Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar are perfect RPO players. Jeffrey, more of like a possession player, can really get body control and get in front of Stephon Gilmore. Huge advantage Eagles here. Eagles also have a huge advantage with their offensive line versus the Patriots front seven. I already touched on it, but the Eagles have, big physical line. I'm hoping, the Eagles just pound and those 2 to 4 yard runs become the 4 to 6 yard runs, and then eventually one of them busts. Hopefully Blunt can be the one to stick the dagger in at 10 with a big run. Special teams are about even. I'm sure you could give maybe a slight edge to the Patriots, but they're both consistently top 5 special teams. Both lost their really good punt returners. Coaching, I would give a huge edge to Bill Belichick, but that's more of a testament to Bill Belichick than like shade to Doug Peterson.
Yeah. If this were any other coach, I would say the coaching made I'm trying to think. Like, let's pretend Jacksonville had won last week, I would give the coaching advantage to Doug Peterson.
Exactly my point.
If
so
this
it is
were
a
the
huge
Steelers,
advantage.
I would give the coaching advantage to Doug Peterson.
Same. So would I. So, with all that being said, well aware, beating the Patriots on 2 weeks rest is damn possible. I wish it was 1 week's rest because Tom Brady would be sore. Gronk probably wouldn't have played. But a couple of more things that I noticed that are just little small advantages for the Eagles. Advantages, small advantages, but advantages nonetheless. First of all, this game's going to be played on turf. Good luck blocking Fletcher Cox on turf. You're not going to be able to block him. I'm so serious, dude. I was listening to a podcast this morning, and I never really knew this, but Chris Sims, son of Phil Sims, who does a Bleacher Report podcast, he said that defensive linemen love playing on turf. I always thought skill position players would love playing on turf. He said linemen love it because they can stick their foot in the ground, and they're just stronger than you, and they can go. Unlike, mud or dirt and grass will move a little bit, but the turf isn't moving. So that's something that I didn't really think about. Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount were both on the Patriots Super Bowl roster last year. I don't think that helps from a schematic standpoint, but that helps from like a locker room standpoint. They can really let the younger players and players that have never been to a Super Bowl, we can't take any days off these next 2 weeks because the Patriots aren't. I know that for a fact. And lastly, you're going to like this one. I don't know if you saw this. Doug Peterson has Brett Favre coming in to talk to the team on Saturday.
Get out of here.
Okay? Football is a game of emotions. Controlled emotions, but a game of emotions, and the Eagles are going to be fired up after hearing old Brett Favre's country ass up there.
The one thing I will say about Philly that is hard to, I guess, overlook when picking this game is how they've embraced this underdog role. Mm-hmm. They've been underdogs the last 2 games for sure. Weren't they a touchdown underdog against Atlanta? I know they were a field goal underdog against Minnesota.
Oh, they were huge underdog against Atlanta at home. It was disrespectful. I think the spread was 6.
They've embraced it. They've looked forward to it. They play angry. That is really hard just to overlook. But again, I'm just having a hard time picking a team,
I got you.
Picking a team making their first.
I understand if I've changed it.
Yeah.
Have I swayed your needle at all? I'm not done.
I will say a little bit.
All right, I got a couple more things here. All right, so this is the Patriots' 8th Super Bowl in 17 years. Absolutely ridiculous. Eagles have never won a Super Bowl. Now, I don't know this for a fact, but I think the stadium is going to be at least 60-40 Eagles fans.
I think so too.
Which is a huge advantage. It may even be more lopsided than that, and I'll tell you why. Patriots fans are spoiled by trips to the Super Bowl every year. Okay, that's one reason. 2, this isn't the sexiest matchup in the world.
Nope.
It's not. They're playing Nick Foles, backup quarterback.
On paper, at
3,
least.
It's in 0-degree Minnesota.
Yep.
It's not a week-long vacation to the Super Bowl. It's like if you're not, you can only go there and go to the Super Bowl when you're staying in your hotel the rest of the time. So with that being said, I think a lot of Pats fans will skip out on this game, and I don't think Eagles fans will skip out on this game. This is, once in a lifetime for Eagles fans. So Eagles fans will be packing the stadium. So with that being said, it's time for my prediction. Almost done here, everyone. If the Eagles can stay confident and not be intimidated by the Patriots' mystique, which is, in my opinion, what happened to obviously the Falcons, but the Jags last week too. Mm-hmm. I think the Jags could have put that game away.
I honestly don't think Philly will. They just have that mentality, I think, right now where they just don't care who that other team is. They're going to go out there and ball out
and play their hardest. Exactly. They're not going to be intimidated, which is huge. Honestly, I'm so split on this game, Shane. It's probably 50-50. Even if I wasn't an Eagles fan, I'd probably go 51-49 Patriots. But I'm rolling with my Eagles for all the reasons I just said. I picked them every game this postseason, and they've won. And Shane, I shouldn't have. There's no reason. They've given me no reason after Carson Wentz got hurt to pick this team, but I just felt like they were going to win. And I feel like they're going to win this game, dude. I feel like what's going to happen, Philly's going to get out to an early lead because the Patriots are going to come out slow like they've done. Did you know they've never scored in the first quarter of a Super Bowl?
Yep. They have -2 points in a Super Bowl.
And the Eagles can score quick. So I'm thinking that, hopefully that can happen. But we discussed this the past 2 weeks. Like I said, pessimistic Eagles fans, some reason I'm super confident about this. Like you said back in the beginning, even regular season, not that good teams, I would text you and be like, I don't know, dude, Cardinals, for example, and they ended up beating the hell out of the Cardinals. But I'm confident because this team is confident. They're confident, dude. They're not afraid to play this team. They have no fear. They're loose. They want to play ball. That goes a long way against the Patriots. Like I said, I feel like the Falcons and the Jags fell right into the master plan.
I agree with that 100%.
Patriots fall behind a lot, and Philly plays very well with a lead. They're built to play with a lead. Pass rush and running the ball, they do both well. So I think they can close this game out in the fourth if they're up 2 scores. I don't see the Patriots scoring 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. I really don't. Bill Belichick's master game planner, so there's you can't game plan yourself out of being physically manhandled. There's nothing that's gonna out game plan the Eagles getting 4 yards of carry if that's what ends up happening. If you're getting a push on the offensive line, that's what's happening. Lastly, I did want to say this. I'm not one to take away from teams who won, especially I actually like the Patriots. I really respect them. I really, really like them as a team. If they were playing pretty much any other team, I'd probably pick them besides a couple in this game. But if you win the Super Bowl under any circumstance, you deserve all the credit. But listen, hear me out. The Patriots could have easily, and I mean, I would say screw easily, they should have lost their last 2 Super Bowls. Yeah. They should have lost them. You take away
you could argue they should have lost. Not the ones that they lost, but the ones that they've won, they should have lost probably the last 3. The one to Philly, the one to Seattle, and the one to Atlanta. They probably should not have won.
If you take away atrocious coaching, I don't think it's that great of coaching on Bill Belichick's part, even though it is. If you take away atrocious coaching by the Falcons, the whole fourth quarter of that game was atrocious coaching, and you call a slant pass with beast mode in the background, in the backfield
with a timeout. Come on
the 1 yard line. Yeah, stupidest thing I've ever seen. They lose both of those, so it's like I get it, dude, and it's like I feel like 30 years from now the Patriots are going to be like Michael Jordan. There's going to be like this mystique with them, like they were actually just couldn't be beat. And it's like, dude, they should have lost a lot of these games.
I've thought that recently, too. You could easily put an asterisk by every game and say, well, I mean, you could do that with everyone.
Yeah, and believe me, you get credit for winning the game. You won the Super Bowl, but it's like, it's not like they haven't beat any team by more than 4 points in a Super Bowl besides the Falcons, and that was because it was a walk-off touchdown in overtime. Like, they don't beat the hell out of these teams. The reason I think they usually win, and I said that last week against Jacksonville, is because the other team gets tired in the fourth quarter, and that's when Tom Brady starts doing his thing. Yep. But that D-line is not going to be tired in the fourth quarter. They're going to be fresh. Yeah. It's going to be like it's the second quarter.
Yeah, I said that. They're deeper than Jacksonville. They're going to rotate bodies. And if Tom Brady expects that pass rush to lighten up in the fourth quarter, I think that's highly unlikely.
It's going to get worse because the offensive line is going to be tired.
Yep.
But as long as this team realizes that Tom Brady and Bill Belichick are human and keep in mind the things I just said and don't beat themselves, I really genuinely think Philly's going to win their first Super Bowl. I got Eagles 28, Patriots 23.
You made a good point in there somewhere, and I had to piggyback off it. Now I can't remember. Just you have swayed me a little bit. I desperately wanted to take New England, but
I will never ever call somebody dumb.
Or I'm sorry, I desperately wanted to take Philly.
Yeah, I'll never. If you take the Patriots, I can't be like, dude, like blah blah blah. But like, like I said, if I didn't go through all those matchups and I really didn't think the Eagles were going to win, I wouldn't have said that I thought they were going to win. But they really do. If you take away, like you said, they have the coaching matchup, but still two very good coaches.
Yep.
They have the quarterback advantage. But if you put Tom Brady against the Eagles defense and Nick Foles, last week's Nick Foles against the Patriots defense, I mean,
let's do our experiment. If you take away his name and just saw the way he was playing in the postseason,
exactly,
you would assume, oh my gosh, that's Aaron Rodgers, whoever, he's on fire, he is not going to lose this game.
And
but the fact it's Nick Foles, we're like,
Nick Foles has played well in all three of his playoff games. He has 0 interceptions. 0.
Yeah,
that's impressive. That's really impressive.
I remember what I wanted to say. The one thing I feel about this game is I feel last year it felt like there was only one team in the Super Bowl last year. Like, it was already predetermined that New England was going to win the game. Atlanta didn't even show up. You know what I mean? And like the Patriots fans all showed out. I think probably because this was a chance to get their 5th one, which is huge. No one's got 5 ever.
For Tom, that's huge for Tom and everything.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's why I felt like it was such a big deal when Atlanta got out to a 28-3 lead, and then they came back and won. This year, it doesn't feel like that. The Patriots are kind of shrugging.
Yeah.
We made another Super Bowl, whatever. Especially the fans. The Eagles are fired up. That is one thing. I think Philly has a much better chance than Atlanta did last year for whatever reason. I really will not.
Outside of like the actual football team itself, I think the Eagles have a lot of like little dumb advantages. Like, I think they'll have a slight home field advantage. I think the turf plays into the Eagles' advantage a little bit. There was a couple other like little dumb things that I just said in there. The fact that just this, like you said, like this is the Patriots' 6th Super Bowl. Like you said, like obviously they're so serious about it. 8th, yeah. But so I feel like they're, like you said, kind of just like, this is like what we do. Like, blah, blah, like this is it for the Eagles. Like, this is it for Philly in general.
And that's
like,
the way it should be.
They have to get this done for Philly. Like, and I'm confident in them. They want to do it. So
I feel a whole lot more confident in Philly this year than I did Atlanta last year. I will not be shocked if come next week when we're recapping this, we're talking about how Philly shocked the world and knocked off New England.
I'll be on this podcast
crying. I won't be shocked at all. You won't be on the podcast? Is that what you said?
No, I said I'll be on this podcast crying.
Oh, I know. But I won't be shocked at all if Philly pulls this off. But again, I just can't do it.
I know.
I can't pick against the team going into their 8th Super Bowl where the head coach has been in 10. The quarterback will be his 8th. He's been in 7. Where in the other side, the head coach is, I believe, appearing in his first Super Bowl ever. I know Nick Foles is appearing in his first Super Bowl ever. I mean, how many players on the Philly have even played in a Super Bowl? I only know Chris Long and LeGarrette Blount. 5. It's 5. Okay. So that's more than I thought, but that's still not a lot.
Yeah. No, it's not.
So, but yeah, you have swayed me.
It's okay.
Anything else you want to add?
I didn't think I'd change your mind, but I did know that I know that you're a reasonable person, and if you hear some information that'll change your mind, you'll sway your opinion a little bit.
In all seriousness, I was typing this up for my blog today that I'm going to post. I should say post today that I posted that I typed up yesterday, and I was seriously at the analysis part of my post, I was just staring at it. I was like, I don't know who I'm going to take in this game.
Dude, Me too, and that's how it was. Shane, I'm not kidding. I didn't make my actual official pick until I did this analysis today.
I made mine about 2 hours ago.
I was like, dude, if the Eagles play their game, they should win this game.
Yeah.
So we'll see. All right, man.
Well, this has been a very fun all NFL podcast. I believe our first one like that. Kept it fairly short. Hope the viewers enjoyed this week. James, I am going to be cheering for your Eagles like crazy. I got you in mind. I got my friend Carter Coleman in mind. I got our friend Armand, who used to work at Chick-fil-A, in mind. I'm going to be cheering for y'all like hell to get this win Sunday. I hope it happens. Everybody else, enjoy your weekend. Enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. We'll see you next week.
All right, man.